Hello and welcome back to the Thoughts from the Bench podcast. This is episode 15. I'm here with my co-host Austin. This is Luke Jett, and we are joined by a very special guest, the host of Sports Talk Live on Comcast Sportsnet, and also the Cap and Haw Show on 87.7 The Game FM. It is David Kaplan. David, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Luke and Austin. It's an honor to be with you guys.
All right, fantastic. So we're going to start out by talking about the big news in Cubs land, in the big league club at least. The Jeff Samardzija turning down the 5-year, $85 million extension. From what you've heard, is it just the money why he's turning it down?
It's pretty much the money. I mean, they're so far apart. People keep thinking that the Cubs and Samardzija are close. They're nowhere close. He's looking for north of $120 million. So they're $40 million apart. He wants to know that they're going to win fairly quickly, which I think in 2 years they're going to be pretty competitive. I think he would sign if they came close to his number, but at 120, even call it 115, you're $30 million apart. They're not even close.
Yeah, I tweeted this, I think, 2 days ago when he rejected it. I wouldn't pay Samardzija over $100 million. I'm sorry. I'm not going to pay him that money.
That is the price of doing business today. Nobody wanted to pay Jay Cutler $127. That's the price of what a quarterback gets. When you see Homer Bailey get $105 with an option year for $20 million more, so he's at $125 or thereabouts. When you see $147 for Zach Greinke, when you see $153 million for Jacoby Ellsbury at a different position, it's just that's the price of doing business. So we can all say we wouldn't pay it, but teams will. So it means if you want guys like that, you got to pay it.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And any suitors, do you think?
He's going to have suitors lined up like planes at O'Hare. I mean, this is a guy that everybody would want. He has no injury history. He's a hell of a good guy. He's a great fit in the clubhouse. He's a leader. He's 29 years old, going on to 30. And if you're ready to win, which the Cubs are not, you're getting his prime years, 30, 31, 32, 33. The next 4 years, he should be really, really good.
Yes, very, very true. Austin, you got anything?
Not really. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Jeff Samardzija, despite just about never knowing how to actually spell his last name. I think that I wish that the Cubs were able to put up the money that he's wanting. A really great pitcher. Would be amazing to see him and Chris Sale stay in the same city. But I don't see it happening either.
Yeah.
Luke, tell me exactly what he said. It was hard to hear him.
He was just saying that he'd like to see Chris Sale and Samardzija stay in the same city, and it'd be good for Chicago if he stayed.
Oh yeah, it'd be good for Chicago, but the White Sox don't care what the Cubs are doing, and the Cubs don't care what the White Sox are doing. So there'll be other good players coming. Chris Bryant's going to get here. The White Sox have Jose Abreu. There are always going to be good players coming, always going to be good players going. It's not like when I was a little kid, well, before you guys were born. I picked up the paper every day, and I knew it was going to be Kessinger, Beckert, Sano, Williams, Banks. I mean, the same guys. Hundley. They were all going to be in the lineup every year until they retired.
Yeah.
Well, rarely they got traded. It's just not that way anymore.
And you mentioned our next topic, Chris Bryant. He homered in his first AAA game last night. What do you think his best tool is overall? Do you think it's his hit for average tool, or do you think it's his raw power, or what do you think it is?
I think it's his raw power. There's no doubt about it. It's his raw power. He's got the ability in an era where we test for everything now. And so steroids are, I'm not saying out of the game, but they've been minimized by a lot. That when you have a guy that can hit for the kind of power he can, same with Javi Baez, these guys are in huge demand. Huge.
It's great just looking down and knowing that, barring anything, injury or whatever, knock on wood, that these guys are just a year away and so close to the big leagues and so close to help contributing to the Cubs in the majors?
I think Bryant's going to be here mid to late April next year. It'll work with the service time clock, and it will give him some time to season, maybe transition to the outfield if that's where he ends up moving to, as some scouts believe he will. And then if you look at it from a perspective of Javi Baez, he's struggling a little bit this year. He's leading the team in home runs. His defense has been better. He's still only hitting around 219, 220. Now he did get up to a horrific start, so if you take that away, he's much better. So I think you'll see Javi here at some point this season. But would I be stunned if Javi didn't get here till mid to late April next year? No, I would not.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he came up this year, but I guess that's just with his struggles. But if he goes on a tear for a month, they're going to bring him up. If he's just hitting the ball out of ballpark and just hitting probably like 300, 350, just goes on a stretch, I think he's just knocking on the door already, and he's just going to come up.
If he gets red hot for a month, yes, he will get here. He will. He's going to be here at some point. He's a really good player, and people who are questioning him at all or down on him at all, they need to relax.
Yeah.
He got off to a bad start. He is going to be fine.
And he's the youngest player in the Pacific Coast League still, so
correct
is another thing, yeah. So I was listening to your show, the Cap and Haw show today, and you guys were talking to Casey Johnson about the odds that Carmelo Anthony comes to the Bulls. Now, I'm in full-out Carmelo fever. That's what I want. I'm dead set that I think the Bulls are going to get him. And you brought up an interesting point on how they can get both of them, both Kevin Love and Carmelo Anthony. And I agree with you. I think it can happen.
Yeah, the problem is, and I think Casey Johnson put it pretty well, you're asking Carmelo Anthony to not only take less, but to take a ton less.
Yeah.
I just, after thinking about it, making some more calls this afternoon, I just don't see that Melo's going to take $11 or $12 million. Just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and I think, do you think Taj will stay if Melo comes? Or is Jimmy Butler the one to be moved?
I think if they had their choice, they'd move Jimmy Butler. I think they like him. He's a good guy. He's a good defender. He's not a very good scorer, and he's going to be a free agent looking for $8 to $10 million. Am I paying $8 to $10 million for what he does? No, I am not. Now, if he's a big time scoring too, different story. But he's not. At least not at this point. So, do I think that they will move Taj? They may have to move Taj. If they can get away with moving Jimmy Butler and keeping Taj, then they've pulled off the impossible if they add Anthony.
Yeah, and one thing we always I think one of the things Bulls fans always put on the back burner is I think a lot of people expect Rose to come back to the way he was prior to both of these injuries, and I don't see that happening.
I think Derek could come back and be pretty darn close to what he was, because he's only, 24 turning 25. It's not like he was 33 turning 34 or 35. So I do think that there's a chance you're going to see Derek, but I don't think you'll ever see the Derek that has to put the team on his back, especially if they get Anthony. He will be the main scorer, and Derek will be, a guy that has a lot of responsibility, but a lot of it will be kind of distributing the basketball and then the occasional spectacular play. So that's my take on it. Derek's still going to be Derek. I just don't think he'll ever be asked to be Derek.
Yeah. And I saw something from Bleacher Report today that said the Rockets are going to go all in for LeBron James if he opts out. Do you think that will help out the Bulls in their quest for Carmelo Anthony? Do you think those two teams are going to go so hard at LeBron that Melo's just going to go under the radar and come to the Bulls?
No, because Melo's too good a player, and nobody just goes under the radar. It's not like you only have one phone call, and so they make it to LeBron. They're going to call everybody. They're going to have every ball in the air. The Bulls are going to do the exact same thing. These guys are all pros, these GMs. They know what they're doing. And I think in the end, I don't see Carmelo going back to New York. I do see him making a move, and I do see him coming to Chicago. That's my gut feel. If
Melo were to come to the Bulls, how many wins would you put them at? 55, 60?
I mean, if Derek's healthy, there's no reason they can't win that number of games. They should absolutely be able to do that.
And I think if they get Melo, they're probably the best team in the East. I think.
If they get Melo, it depends what Miami does. But if they do get Melo, boy, they're going to be awfully tough to beat.
It's hard because I think there's no way Chris Bosh or Dwayne Wade opt out unless they're going to try to get a superstar because they're not going to get the same deal as that. Why would you turn down 22 million and just attempt at a star and then what if it doesn't fall through? Then you just lose that money.
Pat Riley's a wizard. He's the best.
That's true.
So if he's able to get them to take a little bit less money, then he'll have a trick up his sleeve. Mark it down. No one thought he could pull off all three last time. Never, ever count out Pat Riley.
And last question here for you, Cap. What did you think of Pat Riley's recruitment speech to LeBron yesterday?
I loved it. I thought he was outstanding. He's not going to get down on his knee like he's begging somebody. So, yeah, I loved the fact that he basically said, if you're going to run away as soon as it gets a little difficult, then, what are we doing? But I do think Pat has something up his sleeve. He will find a way to get another player in there. Will it be a max player? No, he can't do that. But he'll find a way to get someone like he did last time to get Ray Allen or Mike Miller. He'll get somebody to play with him.
All right. Great stuff, Cap. Thanks for coming on the podcast with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking me. All the best to you.
Yeah, you too, Cap. Talk to you later.
Good. See ya.
All right. Sorry about that, Austin. We couldn't really hear you on
that's
that.
fine. No, it's fine. Like I understood you couldn't hear me, so
Any reaction to what he said?
not really. Other than I think that I can see Baez coming up this year. I don't expect him to be waiting around until next year. What else did we talk about? Melo. I don't think we had talked about this before about hitting Melo in love, and I think that his response to his later response that it would just be almost impossible is how I feel about it. Feel pretty positive about getting Melo, and I think that I would agree that Melo will be our main scorer next year if Derrick Rose is fully healthy and we have Melo.
Yeah.
I almost go. I'm afraid to make the next step, but I think that Derrick Rose even becomes our third point scorer behind Noah as well.
I don't think Noah's ever going to become that scorer.
I don't know. It'd be tough to see. As far as the best team in the East, should we give Melo? I think that getting Derrick Rose back and having Melo, I think that puts us over Indiana. I think that we would be able to edge out. I would hope that we'd be able to edge out the Wizard. Who else was ahead of us this year?
Just Miami.
I can't remember. What?
Just Miami, I think. Toronto.
Yeah.
I don't think Toronto.
Yeah,
Toronto's going to lose. They're going to lose Kyle Lowry in free agency. So
it's not that I don't think that we'll be head and feet better than everyone else, but I think that with that, I think that we become the team to beat in the East. So
I completely agree. Did you like Pat Riley's little speech?
I don't know. I'm torn. I agree that with what Cap said and the fact that Pat Riley is Houdini when it comes to making moves. He always has something up his sleeve, but I think that there's a little bit of I think he took a little bit of a low blow at LeBron with the whole "don't be a coward" thing. I don't know how much it has to do with him being a coward, as much as it has to do with him wanting to make amends with Cleveland. So I think he made it sound like it was like, oh, we didn't win a championship and that's why LeBron's leaving. I think that it was determined before they had lost that LeBron was going back to Cleveland. That's my personal opinion, though.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I don't think LeBron. I think LeBron's going to opt out, take a couple of days, kind of gather himself, but I think he ultimately ends up back in Miami.
You think he ends up back in Miami?
I do. I don't think Cleveland's a player anymore, to be honest. I don't think so.
I hope they are.
I've really changed my stance the last couple of days. Just thinking about it, like, yeah, it'd be great if he did go back to Miami. I think that's the storybook ending, but I don't think it's ever actually going to happen.
You mean Cleveland? You said Miami.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I meant Cleveland. Houston's going to be interesting. If Houston can
I
get,
don't. I see. That's what I was going to ask you. How do they fit him on their payroll?
they have to
They've all,
get rid of Ashik and Jeremy Lin.
but still, they have Howard and what's his name, Beardman.
Harden.
Yeah, Harden.
I don't believe Harden's under a max contract.
Is it not? Okay.
I don't believe
I
so.
don't know what their contract situation is.
I don't
Um,
believe so.
I think that if I were LeBron, I would never want to go to a team with Dwight Howard on it.
I don't think I want to
For
go.
some,
I don't think I'd want to go to the East or the Western Conference.
oh, that too. I mean, then you're basically making your trip to the finals that much more difficult.
If they even get to the
Yeah,
finals.
he'll he'll essentially go from having to play 5 or 6 really great games in the finals to having to play a good series every series.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he wants that sort of, I guess, competition, if you will. That was pretty much all that I would have said if he had heard me. So moving on, we could talk about Love to Golden State.
Yeah. He could you imagine if that's an interesting deal, really.
That's scary. That really is scary. Him and Curry, that'd be a young dude to mess with. They would have to. I imagine that when you think of Love going to Golden State, that they would have to give up Klay Thompson.
Yeah, Klay Thompson and David Lee.
Who's very good and underrated or I guess like underhyped as he kind of sits in the shadow of Curry. But I think that they would definitely be improving themselves. They'd have a big man that I'd say that they could definitely compete with the Thunder. I don't know if it depends on I don't know what the contract situation is in San Antonio, but I think that they still have the upper hand, and their teamwork is just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice for the Bulls to get Love, but it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And and actually, when you think about it, okay, here's a little scenario for you. Bulls miss out on Melo. Melo goes back to New York. Okay. Melo's a free agent after next year.
What is he this year? Is it like player optional?
Yeah.
Okay.
So technically, we could be having the same discussion next year.
Which I would think that if he went back to New York, depending on how things went that season, if they didn't do well, and he saw Derrick Rose come back and saw what we had with Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, and I don't know who else you would include in that.
Taj probably.
Really, but yeah, probably Taj, but he'd be probably taking Taj's spot.
Yeah.
So I think that we become that much more of a threat, unless of course the Knicks either go to the conference finals or go all the way to the finals, which with Melo, it's definitely a possibility. He's a really great player. I think he's probably underrated. But it's just there's so much talk about how Melo is just like a flat shooter, and I think that he plays a solid amount of defense. I think that that's not talked about, and I think that if we had a healthy Derrick Rose and we had Joakim Noah to even progress his game even more, I think that Melo would, without a doubt, want to come to Chicago. Shit that's not working. New York.
I agree with that.
So.
I completely agree with that. I was just thinking about that today. I'm like, well, if he's gonna opt in, he's got to be a free agent sometime. So the Bulls could technically get him next year. But we're gonna switch topics to another thing. announced this today that the Blackhawks are going to be playing in the Winter Classic again this year
Woohoo!
in Washington, D.C. at Nationals Park against the Capitals. So I always love the Winter Classic games. I think they're really fun to watch and fun. I think they're fun for fans.
I definitely would agree. Should I become incredibly wealthy someday, I hope to go to one.
Yeah, they're probably expensive. Really expensive.
They are. I believe that they are actually more expensive than the Stanley Cup. It might be. You can look me up on that. They are ridiculously expensive. So someday, when me and Luke are both rich, we'll be talking about going to one.
And maybe because of this podcast, we'll be rich.
Who knows?
I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah, I mean that is.
But
I love sports, so.
yeah. I think that's it. Let's see how many. Do you have any last thoughts here?
Not really.
All right. I have one thing, but I was gonna wait for you to, if you had something.
You can go. Maybe
Okay.
I'll start something off.
My thing is Patrick Manley, the longest tenured Bear, the long snapper, retired today.
Long snapper. Yep.
He retired today, and he has been the long snapper ever since I can remember. He played a team record 16 seasons and 245 games, and a bunch of those were in a row. I don't think he's ever missed a game until the end of last year, but he's a great guy. He's always been the captain, always been good in the community, and it's tough to see him go.
I definitely agree. And if we're going to talk about football, then we could talk about Jonathan Franklin and his neck injury and how he is officially, as of, I believe it was a couple hours ago, retired. He had suffered a neck injury. I want to say that it was week 11. And so I think that, it's a really sad thing to see, not only because it's the Packers, but just seeing a player go down for the rest of their career when he was about to start his second year. So, sad thing to see. You never wish that upon a guy.
Yeah, you never want to see somebody go down with an injury. But I think that's it. I'm gonna wrap things up. Number 15s you could think of, or wait, yeah, this is 16.
Yeah.
Whoops. I think I said 16s. Marcus Kruger, Ramos Ramirez for the Cubs used to be. I don't know about.
If you're asking me for a stock 16, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean Kruger. I don't know anybody else.
I'd say probably Kruger.
All right. Well, Marcus Kruger is our number 16 of the week. You can find us on Twitter at ShyBenchThought and like us on Facebook at Thoughts from the Bench. You can download our podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, and you can also find our podcast on YouTube. And we always tweet out an article, blog post with the links to all of those things. And we want to give a special thanks to David Kaplan for coming on. He's the first of our first guest since Jackie Carmichael came on, and we really appreciate him coming on. And we have some pretty good guests lined up that I've talked to Austin about, so we'll have some guests here in the next couple weeks.
Excited for those.
I like doing these about 2 a week. You like 2 a week?
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay, I think we're gonna start doing these 2 a week. Monday, Friday.
I'm down for that. Friday night off, so.
Yeah, So we're gonna start doing that, and we'll be at you next week. I think that's about it. Anything else, Austin?
I'm good.
All right, man. And we'll talk to you later. And thank you for listening to the 16th episode of the Thoughts from the Bench podcast. Talk to you later.